we have to create the right vibe, the energy, and everybody at the organization has to feel so privileged to be here. It's no other way.
Thanks for listening to the Purely Arsenal podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at Purely Arsenal FP for all the latest Arsenal podcasts.
Welcome to another edition of a Purely Arsenal sit-down podcast. We're back with a win at St James's Park. Got two great guests with me. I've got Neil Shah. How are you, Neil?
I'm very good, thank you. We're back with a chance. That's
what I like to hear, Neil. That's what I like to hear. We always bring in the positivity. I've also got Adam Keys with me. How you doing, Adam?
I'm good. Still believing.
He was at the game, Adam. Travelled down. At the game, going to find out a little bit about the atmosphere there. It looked like a great game, great atmosphere. Definitely a difficult game for the referee to handle. Maybe talk about how he handled it as we go, because there was certainly some interesting decisions that went along the way there. Some early on that we're going to discuss a little bit. Neil, you don't like not line-up questions, but it's a very simple one. Were you at all surprised before we get into the game? Were you at all surprised that he stuck with Jorginho and he didn't? I think there was the one question for most of us going in. I think in the last podcast I did with Garrett, our main question was, will it be Partey? Will it be Jorginho? Were you surprised? I mean, he got man of the match. It was obviously the right choice, but were you surprised at all leading into it?
No, I wasn't surprised at all. I do feel a little bit sorry for Trossard. I think he's been brilliant, and I just wanted to see him get more minutes, I think, personally. I mean, as it turned out, it was fine the way it all panned out, but I just feel that Trossard is missing out big time, so a little bit surprised there. But no, not with Jorginho. I think he's been brilliant. He's been a great signing, as well as Trossard has been, and it proved to be the case. His experience showed. I thought he was very intelligent throughout the whole game, really intelligent for what he was doing. Loved it. I loved it. And he just felt command the midfield. And that's where we won the battle, I think. All our midfielders were fantastic. Odegaard, Xhaka, brilliant. So, no, exceptionally pleased with his performance and his input.
Yeah.
Good signing.
But yeah, he's been very good.
I think he should spearhead the remaining 3 games, I think, the way he's playing.
Do you think it means anything more longer term? Do you just regard this as a little bit of a slump that Partey's going through? Or do you think it... I've likened it... I've not likened it. I've likened the concerns to things like, athletically when Vieira dropped off a little bit and we sold him to Juventus, athletically when Fabinho dropped off this season. I'm not saying it's like that. I'm just saying just be concerned with it, maybe.
I think we do need to bring in someone fresh, younger in the summer. I do. I really do think we need someone there, because it is a bit of an ageing midfield. I mean, with the exception of Odegaard, maybe. So, it's Xhaka, Partey, Jorginho. They're all, they're not. They're coming towards the end, if you like, rather than they start the beginning of their careers. And so we need someone fresh. We need someone powerful in there. And as you said, athletic. I still feel that we've never really replaced Vieira, and we still need to find someone of that ilk in that midfield, especially with the vigours of the Premiership. So I think it's a short-term thing, but I think we just got to focus on these next 3 games, and then I'm sure Edu and Arteta will do what they need to in the summer for that position. That's what I believe anyway.
Yeah. What about you, Adam, on that? I've talked to you guys at the Arse Therapy podcast. We have nice little debates going on up and back and forth with that, and talk a lot about the replacement for the 6th, replacement for the 8th. Do you link it to anything like that, or do you think it's more of a short-term, adaptation to players being in form and the needs of a game? Though many might have said for this game, athletically, you might have looked at the team sheet and thought, well, I'm a little bit concerned by our centre midfield there. They might get us a little bit.
Yeah, I think Jorginho coming in right now is just form. Partey's dropped off a lot. I'm still convinced he's carrying something. He doesn't look to be moving like he did earlier in the season. He had the physio away with him with Ghana last month. And then he missed that game as well last minute, where Chris Hughton said that it was just a knock. It was a precaution more than anything. But since then, he's just not been the same. And for me, I think it's a position that we do need to get someone in. I would love Declan Rice. A big part of that is he's always available. And if you look at a lot of the players Arteta's bought over the last few years, availability's been a key thing that he's looked at. With he loves players that just don't pick up injuries, and I think it's no surprise we're being linked to Mount and Rice, neither of which pick up many injuries. I think Rice has missed one game through illness. He's never had an injury.
Mount's having surgery right now, but rarely otherwise.
Yeah, so this is the longest miss Mount's ever been out, and he's 24. So I don't think it's a coincidence that that's the kind of player he's looking at when we've had so many issues with Partey. He's not necessarily someone I would want to see sold, but I think with squad building nowadays, just having more options in there, Champions League football, we're not going to be able to play the kids. These players are going to need to play twice a week. And I also want to see us take the Cup seriously as well next year. Maybe not the Carabao, but I definitely want to see us back in the mix for the FA Cup.
Yeah.
So yeah, having players that can compete and be relied upon every week, I think that's key. But yeah, right now, I think that was just Jorginho came in because Partey was poor, and I thought Jorginho was superb. He was a joy to watch out there. I just thought he was brilliant. He was great against Chelsea the other night. I really enjoyed watching him there, but Chelsea were so bad that it was one of those that you're like, was that a good performance, or were they just that bad that kind of El Neni could have come in and done the same as Jorginho did?
Yep. No, I agree with you. Me and you are going to go back and forth with the Rice to Caicedo thing, and I see the need on both sides. I think it'd be very interesting to see which direction we pull in harder. Obviously, lots of the links are to Rice, but we'll get onto that a little bit. It could have been very different. I thought we had a fantastic first half, but let's talk. I mean, if we talk the first 7 minutes, they hit the post in the first minute, I think, through Jacob Murphy, and then there was the penalty decision. I was at work. My students were doing this crazy competition, so it was really intense during that moment of the penalty. And I had to step away because I was so frustrated when I saw it, that it'd even been given, even if it was handball. And I'll give my reasons for it. But how did you feel when you saw that and the start we had? Could have been very different. Could have easily been 1 or 2-0 down. I know we had a really good first half because we came into the game quickly after. But could have been very different. We've seen how much early goals can sort of shift the momentum of games, especially in recent weeks.
I wasn't surprised at all. I mean, they've been enjoying a lot of success recently. They started fast against Tottenham. They just destroyed them within the first few minutes. I wasn't expecting anything different. I thought being at their home ground, the atmosphere the way it was, with the fans right behind them, the run that they've been on, I wasn't surprised at all. And of course, we're still limping, although we had a great result at Chelsea. And by the way, I found that to be one of my favourite games of the season, although we were, at the point now where the title looks most likely gone. Not impossible, but it's highly unlikely. But I still thought that was a great comeback after the 4 results that we've had. And even despite that and feeling buoyant again, I knew that Newcastle would come up very hard, very fast, very intense. So I wasn't surprised at all. We hit the post. But I think you see, Jack, games are of fine margins, aren't there? There have been many that we've recently lost or drawn where it's down to, or drop points rather, where it's down to fine margins. And this time we got a bit of the luck, and it was on our side. It was a great move by Newcastle, I have to say. It was a great ball by Willock. That found, was it Murphy, I believe?
Yeah, it was Murphy, cut inside.
And hit the post, and I thought, oh God, here we go again. Is it going to be one of those days? But it kind of ended up being a bit of fate, didn't it, in our favour that they hit the post. And I think the game turned really for us after the penalty decision that went our way. And when I first saw it, it was so fast, I thought, oh God, oh no, please don't tell me it's a penalty. But then when you looked at it, you could clearly see that not only did, when the replays were slowed down, that it hit his thigh first, but Kiwior, more importantly for me, was really doing everything he could to shield his arm. And even if it had hit his arm, you can even argue that it wasn't in an unnatural position because he was tucking it away.
Where can he put it? Where can he put it?
Exactly. Well, exactly. That's the point. I mean, the way it's, we see this thing in slow motion. That ball would have come at him really quick. It's a hard one to do, when you're in that position. And in the day, defenders have arms. It's a difficult situation at times. So I think it would have been unfair. What annoyed me again about the whole thing is why they took so long over it. I mean,
why does he need to go to the monitor? Why?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe because he's there. He's at their ground, and the fans are going to get on his back, etc. And there could be a bit of that. So he's trying to demonstrate that he's doing everything he possibly can to see both sides of it. But the fact that people like Shearer was remonstrating against it and thinking, "Oh, that's a penalty," and just makes me sick. I mean, sorry, Shearer, you come across as a very supposedly great pundit. Well, you can clearly be a little bit impartial and see that that's not a penalty. You don't want to win things by cheating. So I was disgruntled with the fact that they took so long over it. So for me, no penalty. So then after that, I think we took the ball by the horns. We changed, and what I loved about our play on Sunday was it was. We offered and demonstrated a plan B, if you like. We changed it up where we needed to be. We brought a bit of gamesmanship into it, very much like Newcastle have been doing. So God knows why they've been complaining about it. And they were moaning at our tactics. Well, that's what you've been doing all season, especially when you came to the Emirates. So you can keep your mouth shut now, because how do you like it? How do you like it when it's on the other foot? I just felt that was the intelligence in our play, and Jorginho was very good at it. The couple of times where he went down, I think he was just stopping the flow and he was slowing things down. I thought he was really clever with it. And I felt that where we needed to still use our style of play and show our identity, we still brought that into play as well, because we created lots of chances. Unfortunately, our strikers weren't on top form, and I think they should have done a little bit better with their chances. It wasn't to be, but it didn't prove to be important anyway, because we still got the result. So I thought it was fantastic. A great showcase of not only coming back from a bad run in a very oppressive ground, probably the worst ground to go to next to Liverpool, I'd say, in the Prem. It's a very difficult ground to go to. Adam will tell you more, because obviously he was there. But I just felt that it was a great comeback, showing again, answering more questions yet again, this late at the end of the season. And demonstrating our attitude and mental strength. It was brilliant. Absolutely fantastic performance.
Yeah, no, it was terrific. Yeah, just quickly going back on the penalty, I was so upset that they had to go to the monitor, because I felt either way, handball or not handball, there's nowhere else he can put the arm. I don't know if you remember FA Cup final 2001 where we lost 2-1 to Liverpool, and we were all over Liverpool for 75 minutes, then Michael Owen did his thing. There was a point in that game where Stefan Honcho handballed the ball on the line from Thierry Henry. Now that's different. It's going in the goal and his arm's here, right, and he doesn't get given. Right now, this is I don't know where else he can put it, and he clearly is not putting the arm towards the ball. So when I looked at it, I was like, why do they keep going over? And that should be something where they should be able to trust in their other qualified personnel to be like, hey, firstly, it didn't hit his arm. Secondly, I don't know where else he can put it, and he should just be going, whatever you're seeing, you're right. Let's just rule it out. He should never ruled it in. But I think the ref, I don't think the ref handled the game very well at all, to be honest. A lot of people said, oh, this ref really let it flow. I thought he was a let it go kind of ref. I thought he let things go that were overly physical. And that's where I've got the irony against Newcastle and the time wasting accusation is completely different as opposed to what they did at the Emirates. But we'll go over that a little bit later. Adam, you were there. Martin Odegaard, 14th minute. Boom, exactly like the Tottenham goal, I felt. Maybe not quite as cleanly struck. But that's 15 goals from Martin Odegaard in the Premier League. I think no other central midfielder has scored more than him from open play in a Premier League season. He's equal Kevin De Bruyne, as I believe, from last season. Might be wrong on that stat, but I know he's ahead of Lampard and everyone else. He is having an unbelievable season. What was the atmosphere like when the goal went in? Because that is quite far away from everything. It feels like things are moving in slow motion from what I remember at St James's Park. How did it feel?
Superb. It was one of those, because we were right behind it, we're up so high, and you've got a bird's eye view of everything. And I do love sitting that high up on the ground. It's the same at the Emirates, because you get to watch every fine detail that happens in a game. If you're down low, you get sucked into the atmosphere. You're up close. Every collision seems 10 times harder. But up top, you can really watch every fine detail play out in the game. And with this, you're right, it was that slow motion thing where he got it, he took that touch, and the minute he lined up that shot, I thought, this is going in. And I just had that feeling, and it was just superb to watch it. It was like you just followed the ball into the back of the net, and it was a beautiful strike. And it was one of those. It came at the point when we needed it the most. So we'd just started to get a bit of a momentum again after the penalty decision, because the Geordie crowd was really wild for the first 10 minutes. And then we were starting to silence them a bit. It is like Anfield in the sense that it's really loud at the start of the game. And if you give that crowd something to cling to, they will keep going. But they're not a proactive crowd. They're really reactive to everything that happens throughout the game. And you've got that Geordie roar every time something happens, where it is literally like a roar that just builds throughout the ground. But the minute we scored that, it just really killed the crowd off. And I didn't expect that. I expected them to kind of get behind the team and get going, because they've had 8 wins in their last 9 games going into this.
Wow, yeah.
And then the minute we scored, it just completely killed everything. And the players just seemed to drop a bit of belief as well. So, but it got our fans going wild. And our fans were in full voice from about 20 minutes before kickoff. And it was just a real party atmosphere up there. It was one of the best atmospheres I've been to. And I've done most away grounds at London and north of London in the league. And that was, I would say, one of the best away days I've done. It was superb. And that goal just really kick-started it. From that point onwards, it just didn't stop. And the goal itself, it was something with the big thing with Jorginho that I noticed, and is he just coaches non-stop on the pitch. If you look at everything he's doing, he never stops shouting, and he's been like that. I used to watch him at Napoli, and he was like that. And he's always directing and always moving, and that's probably his biggest skill. He moves the ball so fast. He only likes 1-2 touches on the ball. And it's not always the most adventurous pass with him, but he moves it so quick that it doesn't matter that he's playing it sideways. Or whereas, say, when El Nani plays it sideways, he's had 2 or 3 touches beforehand and then moved to get it 2 or 3 yards away. Jorginho doesn't necessarily want it back, or when he does, it's open space up. But when he plays the pass to Odegaard, he's not even looking where he plays it. He's shouting at Saka. He's pointing into the space, and that kind of summed up his performance for me. Even whenever he was assisting the goal, he was coaching his teammates on the pitch, and that really set the tone for the whole game. And yeah, I thought he was absolutely brilliant throughout.
Yeah, me too. I thought it was fantastic, and it was. Do you think it quells some of the myths, Neil? That, or not the myths, the debatable question marks about Jorginho and not being able to come up against certain sides. You know, when we played him against Man City earlier in the season, I didn't have as many. Even though we didn't win that game, I didn't have as many concerns because in the centre of the park, Man City don't exude that athleticism that maybe Newcastle do. They've got athletes and basketball players basically everywhere you look. But he's got that experience, isn't he? He's got that experience of big atmospheres, big away games. He said something after the game where he said, they said, well, how do you feel about that? He went, I love playing in games like this, And not to say Thomas Partey doesn't play well in big games, but he's definitely proven to have that experience. I mean, won European Cup finals and things like that, hasn't he, Neil?
Yeah. I think the fact that he's done it at the big stage in Europe within the club competitions is a big key factor, and I think that's why Arteta and Edu chose him, had him as a a second choice or whatever it was after they failed with their first choice acquisitions. And I think they've proved with Trossard, they've proved to be very, very key for us. And I think it is about his experience. I think Adam is spot on with his coaching, because I won't be surprised if he follows in Arteta's footsteps. I really won't, because I think he's got it within him. I remember Arteta being similar as well when he was playing, and I think he's going to do the same. And he's got the perfect person as a mentor, isn't he? Now, and it's crazy to see Arteta as a mentor at his age, and he's so young and learning the trade himself. But I can see that happening, and I just felt going on what you said about his interview. That's exactly what he said. He said if you can't take this oppression, you're in the wrong game. He basically said that. He said you shouldn't be playing football. He says this is what, as kids, we live for, what we thrive for. We want to be entering these oppressive stadiums. So he says as much as it might help the home team, he says it helps us even more because we want it even more then. it's a fire burning in our bellies. And he said as well, the other key point he made on that interview was the fact that he said, we can't always play pretty. We've got to change it up, and we've got to play a different type of game to suit what's, or counter what's going on in front of us. And sometimes it won't be pretty. And I love the fact that he's got that mentality and attitude. And you could just see him all throughout the game. He just kept pointing everywhere. All the times Adam was saying, he just kept pointing, barking orders. Incredible. So you think about it, in the midfield, if you've got him, Shaq and Odegaard playing, we've got three leaders in our engine. It's fantastic to see. And I think that made the difference. That's where we won the game. We just bossed the midfield. All three of them were great. I mean, Xhaka, let's not underestimate what he'd done.
I'm coming to it.
The block at the end, so it was brilliant, wasn't this? Which you'll mention, but brilliant stuff. Yeah, great.
Yeah. He was fantastic. And I do want to touch on a couple of other players. Kirill, we couldn't evaluate, or some people said we couldn't evaluate Kirill against Chelsea just because they were so poor, and he was up against Aubameyang, who was basically, I call him a feather duster, but he was just not really there. He had 9 touches of the ball. But in this game, I feel, again, a lot of question marks going into this game about could he handle the physicality of their forwards, the Isaacs, the Wilson, who were, very, very physical, I thought at times. Certainly Wilson was on the ball, off the ball, very, very physical. And, but I thought I was really impressed with just his ability to sort of be on the ball and build up play as well. And I thought that was really underrated, especially from a position that is not natural to a left footer. I don't see many left footers start right centre back, and I think there's reasons for that. And that might have been Arteta's reluctance. Do you have any frustration there, Adam? Obviously it's still early days for Kirill, but one, what do you think of the player? And two, do you have any frustration that maybe he could have changed it in that Southampton game? I don't look to the City game, but I'll maybe think, could he have made that change in the Southampton game when we'd already seen a couple of issues in the previous two?
Yeah, firstly, I really like him. I think he looks like a really solid signing. I think you're bang on with him on the ball. One of the things I remember Arsene Wenger saying years ago that whenever he signed someone new, he always looked at, does the player's teammates trust him with the ball? And he talked about Robert Pires, and he said, first day of training, Bergkamp just kept giving him the ball, and he knew he had signed a gem. With Kivior, it was Ramsdale looks far more comfortable. Gabriel looks more comfortable. Ben White, Jorginho, they're all happy to give him the ball. And they were really high pressure situations where he was receiving the ball and he didn't look phased, because you're right about Wilson and Isaac. The two of them are big, strong, pressing forwards. They're both quick. They'll both run at you all day. And they had 25 goals between them coming into this game, and they are in the forms of their lives. So this was a real test, and it's a horrible pitch to go and play on. And I thought he just looked really comfortable. He didn't look phased at all. Whereas the Chelsea game, first 5 minutes, he lost his duel. I think it was against Aubameyang, where he just didn't compete. And then he had a sloppy pass, and he looked really nervous. And then he settled. And from then, he took that kind of composure into the Newcastle game, and he looked great. And then, but yeah, to answer your question on whether he could come in earlier, I agree 100%. I think the City game could have killed him if he threw him in at that point, because our form was so poor, everyone was all over the place. But I think if we didn't have the City game coming up, he would have come in at the Southampton game. And I think that's the same with a few players. I think that City game wasn't just on the players' mind, but it was on Arteta's mind. So everything we were doing in the lead up to that seemed to be around City. We weren't playing the team in front of us. We were playing City in our head 2 games later. And that's ultimately what cost us. But yeah, I think the biggest thing with Kivior coming in is the distances. It's, if you look at the way we're playing now, it's back to the way we were playing with Saliba. He's kind of 5-10 yards away from Jorginho or Partey or whoever's on the pitch at that time. Whereas with Holding, we had dropped 10 metres back, and that was creating bigger distances to the number 6. Our 2-8s were further apart. And if you look at Saliba, he comfortably skips out Partey and goes straight to Odegaard. He can go straight to Saka. Holding plays that pass, and every one of us has our heart in our mouth thinking, where's this pass going? And I think with Kivior, the left-footed thing, I quite liked some of the angles that he created, because he would shift it onto his left and sort of scoop it out to Saka. and it was a very easy pass for him to play. But similarly, on his right foot, he looks very comfortable, and he doesn't look like a player that's overly fazed by things. And again, we have to remember with these players that we've brought in, Jorginho, he's played in every competition. He's played in Naples for years, which is one of the most intense atmospheres around. He's won the Champions League and the Europa League at Chelsea. He's won the World Cup. This isn't some like substandard player that we're bringing into the team. Kivior might only be 22, but he's got quite a few caps for Poland. He's played in the World Cup, and he's played in Serie A for a season and a half before coming here. So again, these aren't kids that are coming into the team. These are quality players, and I think we're seeing again that Edu got his recruitment bang on after pivoting very quickly when we lost out on Madrid.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see his development. I think this is huge for next season. I know it's hard to see it like that because you can only see the next game and you're still thinking about the achievement. But it really could be huge to get him half a dozen games under his belt, because I personally, I'm sure like you guys, don't see any changes barring injury. I don't see Holding starting another game or anything like that. It could be really, really big for him, in terms of his confidence, and also really interested to see where he ends up playing. I think he's obviously going to play a lot more next season. But there's been some hints at him even sort of filtering out to a left-back role, and I could definitely see that just because of the way he distributes the ball, and he's super agile for such a tall player. I think he's beaten a lot of our speed and agility records, right, in the team. So he fits the bill in terms of, do we want someone? Obviously, we'll talk about how Zinchenko came off early. I thought Kieran Tierney was fantastic, by the way, in this game as well. Really good. I've had some little criticisms of Kieran Tierney this season, but I thought, he's a complete pro, and he showed it in this game. I thought he came on at a time when we really needed him. And I like to see Arteta learn from some errors and bring him on earlier, which he hasn't done. Kept Zinchenko until like the 87th, 88th minute at Anfield, and that proved a little bit costly and things like that. So it was really, really good to see. Neil, it was topsy-turvy in the game. I mean, we had some really good chances after Odegaard's goal. Saka was through, could have done better, and Pope made a couple of saves. Obviously, Odegaard's second chance was probably the biggest one, where I felt if that was on his left foot, it's just boom, it's through for the net stuff. But on his right foot, it looked to me like he just took an extra step to try to get it out of his feet, which is notorious of people sort of hitting it off their weaker foot. And did you worry at that point, Neil, that you were like, we've got to take these chances because it's going to prove costly? I remember seeing that one and being pretty worried, to be honest.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've been 2-0 up and lost the points and lost the game, haven't we? So a bit of 1-0 and you miss chances like that. You think, oh, no. We got, in these situations, especially when our confidence has been hit with those 3 draws and the loss, you've got to take every single chance, especially at a ground like at Newcastle. Same with Anfield. When you go Anfield, you get a chance, you have to take it. It's just one of those things. But you just don't know when the next one's going to come, and you don't know whether you're going to get another chance. So, no, I was worried, I have to say. I mean, as I said, I wasn't as concerned going into the game because of the Chelsea game before that. But, of course, it's still a very, very tricky ground to go to. You've got to take your chances. And, by the way, what a ball from Xhaka to Saka. For Saka's chance.
Ball. Sorry,
what a beautiful ball. That was brilliant. And I think, he should have done better. Martinelli, they kept going on about Pope's, they were good saves. And yeah, they were, because if Ramsdale had made those saves, we'd be saying, oh, where is Ramsdale? Because I was lauding on Ramsdale on the other end for doing what he was doing. So, yeah, good saves. But I think our strikers should have done a little bit better. And you're right, as you said, when Odegaard made that chance, I thought, oh, he's got to score. And then he didn't because of what he just described. It was a bit of a, is it going to be one of those games and then they're going to get buoyed up by that and then they're going to go into half-time and Eddie Howe's going to say, look, they've had chances, they haven't taken them and we've hit the post. And, so it was a bit of a concern, but, thankfully it didn't pan out that way for them and it worked for us. So it didn't. Again, it was all academic at the end, but it is a little bit of a worry that are they just a little bit not the strikers with their finishing, or were these just blips in this game? Was it an isolated thing? Because we've got to win our next 3, whatever happens. I mean, need our strikers to be putting the ball in the net. As much as I'd like to say that they're all winnable now, especially after coming off that great Newcastle result. They're still tough. They're still 3 tricky games for us. And so, we need our strikers to be more clinical, I feel. So, yes, I was a little bit worried. So no problems with the chances being created because we were doing that fantastically. I thought Odegaard was smashing, by the way. I've talked about Jorginho's intelligence, but the same goes with Odegaard as well. The way that he's difficult to mark and the way that he finds spaces and his off-the-ball movement, very clever the way he is. I think he's a very, very astute and intelligent guy. And I'm so glad we've got him.
Yeah,
honestly.
I think he's been our player of the season, I think, to be honest. I think he's pushed himself a little bit ahead of Saka. Saka's had a quiet month, maybe 6 weeks. And Odegaard, I don't think he has this season. I don't think he's had a quiet month or 6 weeks. I could be wrong, but I don't mean he's a quiet 1 or 2. But I don't think he has. I think he's been our player of the season. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Adam.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things that summed him up for me was the Martinelli chance. If you look at that, Odegaard has 3 big involvements in that full phase of play. First is pass comes across, he takes it in his chest, and he plays a pass with the outside of his left foot to Saka around the halfway line. That pass is one of those that you rarely see someone do. The ball he takes it down and it's off the outside of his left, but he puts it's a real diagonal pass out wide. It's one of those, it doesn't look that difficult, but it's incredibly technical football at that point, and there's very few players can do that. Then he plays the pass into Martinelli after that. Then whenever Pope saves it, it's him that picks the ball up again, dribbles into the box, shoots, and forces a save from Pope. And that summed him up for me. I used to love watching Ozil. However, he frustrated the life out of me at the same time, because it would be, if that was Ozil, there'd be a good chance he would play that pass and then drift up the field.
Yeah.
And then maybe try and pick up another loose ball later in the phase. However, with Odegaard, it's just that non-stop work rate, that energy. But he's also a bit like Jorginho. He's the one pointing and screaming at his teammates. And this is a guy that comes across very quiet off the pitch. The minute he's on the pitch, he doesn't stop shouting. And he is very much the leader on the pitch. I know Zinchenko is the guy that gets the huddles and stuff like that, but Odegaard's the one that's much more of the organizer on the pitch. And I just thought he was just phenomenal to watch the other day. And he's one of those players, when he does something, it'll be something that looks very simple, and you're just blown away by it because he makes it look so easy, whereas other players just can't do the things he does. And for me, he's very much in the De Bruyne ilk, and he's definitely been our player of the season. I think you're right, Jack. He's had the odd game here or there where he's been quieter, but I don't remember a period of maybe even 3 or 4 weeks where you thought Odegaard's dropped off. And I know post-World Cup he wasn't necessarily scoring, but he was still at the centre of everything. And that to me sums up kind of why he's so important, because even when he's not involved in the final actions of a game, he is involved in everything throughout. And it's, again, even when he has a quiet game and things aren't going 100% on the ball, he's still running and chasing. And I would say he's probably coming out in most games with our highest running numbers. And
yeah,
it makes it very difficult to criticise a player whenever they put that kind of a shift in. So for me, he's definitely been our player of the season. And I think as well, when Jesus came in, he was probably our best player. I think Odegaard's massively stepped past where Jesus is now.
Yeah, I agree entirely. And I think there's been the question mark against him, especially in recent weeks, of does he show up in big games? But I think this is another proof that when the team shows up, he's central to everything. And when the team doesn't show up, of course, the collective, fails you. And that's not something to pin directly on Odegaard. I think when we're good in big games, home or away, generally speaking, he's in our top 3 players. I mean, he's just so good. And the one thing I wouldn't do that Arteta's done in the last few weeks when we've been chasing games or we've needed to get a goal is take him off. I always found that really weird. I'm like, I know we've got to get him rested somewhere, but this isn't the time for it. Just keep it. This is for this game when you're 2-0 up. It would be okay. But I remember I think he did it against Southampton maybe. And I was like, I would never take Odegaard off. He just draws. He didn't do it against Southampton, so Odegaard was on late. But there was one of those games in there that he took him off early. It might have been West Ham away, I think. And I just wouldn't do it. He's the one to draw us back a lot of the times in games, like he did against Southampton. It's just, he's just such a good player, and that's where it sets him and De Bruyne away. Really, the work rate. For number 10s, they're notoriously, they don't have that type of work rate, and I think De Bruyne and him really have set the standard for what modern day sort of players in the attacking midfield position should be doing, really, which was really impressive. But we came out in the second half. We had a fantastic move, didn't we? That led to the Martinelli hitting the bar, which was brilliant. I think it was like a 25 pass move back to front. It was moves we've seen us do before, where we just very, very patient, and it was really unlucky for Martinelli. Really, I thought it was in. Actually, I kind of jumped around at work, and then I realised it hit the bar, but which was a bit stupid. But and then you wanted us to get the second goal because they were having chances to and. Neil, Aaron Ramsdale again. I mean, I thought he was fantastic. I mean, the save from the Shah header was probably the pick of the bunch. Would you say?
Yeah, the one with the strong hand.
Really strong. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was making save after save. I mean, again, how many points has he won us or saved us? If you like, if you look at it from the other way around, he's been instrumental in that, and. This is why it's such a shame for me if it doesn't culminate in winning the title, because, to be honest, we've had all the ingredients for a title-winning team, and that's why we're up there. That is why we're up there. We had a good, solid goalkeeper, which every championship team needs. You do need. You can't. I don't think you can win titles with a mediocre goalkeeper. You can't. You just can't, because a goalkeeper is as instrumental as the strikers scoring goals at times. He saves us points. He wins us points, if you like. And I remember tweeting Ramsdale and then, Ramsdale again, and Ramsdale for the third time. It's just constant. So, as much as Pope was doing it at the other end, Ramsdale was doing the same for us, thank goodness. But I thought that one was the key. Yeah, that was a really instinctive, just sharp awareness. And he said that he was interviewed post-game, and he said, he's been working on that a lot, with the trainers, just to, like, quite a kind of instinctive saves. Even if your body's going one way, that the ball could come the other, and just sticking something out and just being strong with it. I think he's fantastic. I mean, I know he's had his critics as well. Sometimes when things don't go well, all our players get criticised, don't they? But I think he's, for me, that is one of the positions we don't need to worry about. I really like Ramsdale. I think he's our future keeper for a long time, hopefully, touch wood. And I also believe that Turner is also a good understudy as well. Every time I've seen Turner, there's something about him that I like. I mean, I don't know whether he's going to stay long term, but I don't think that's one of the positions we need to worry about at all. And I think Ramsdale, again, we've mentioned Kiwi, or we talked about Ramsdale, we mentioned Tierney's cameo, Odegaard, Xhaka, and Jorginho, all key Newcastle. And it's nice when you have a plethora of names that could easily have been man of the match. That goes to show what a great performance is, what it was, Ramsdale's save was fantastic, and it kept us with that lead, and that led to that great Martinelli goal, which I think it was, people look at it, although it was an own goal, I think that was very clever from Martinelli, by the way. Very patient and clever what he did. And I think it was very well taken. But the delivery was great for it to. Yeah. It wouldn't go anywhere else, would it?
It reminded me a little bit of Saka's at Tottenham as well, because Saka's, when you just hit it hard and across, and you never know what can happen. You can't react to that sometimes, and it can go anywhere. So, he did what he had to do. But Martinelli was a menace constantly throughout. He was constantly a threat. I thought he was our biggest threat in terms of wingers. Again, I thought Martinelli's been on form a lot. I think we do. I mean, I did find it hilarious that Shah, who was one of the overly aggressive players, I would say, you could pick maybe 4 or 5, had his elbow into Jesus, which I thought was very, very pre-planned, very premeditated. Like I said, I just felt the ref was much more of a let it go ref than a let it flow one, and I don't think that's right, especially when you're a team on the other end of the physicality. And what was frustrating to me was they were overly physical, and then their players, after their aftermath of incidents, they were overly physical there too. So all I'd ever see in an aftermath was Trippier mouthing off, pushing people, Callum Wilson overdoing it. But I thought the likes of Granit Xhaka really stood up and protected the players around him, maybe that don't that don't get involved with those things quite as much. But Xhaka's obviously a sort of seasoned pro in that, and he's proven that he can handle his temperament really well, which I thought was really terrific. But I did laugh my head off when I found out it was Fabian Schär that scored the own goal. I thought it was pretty funny, I've got to say. But it was just poetic justice, wasn't it, really? But Adam, where do you stand? I want to talk about Xhaka, but where do you stand on, obviously, fantastic goal, where do you stand on the time wasting antics? Obviously, I think it's all a bit ironic and hypocritical, but from Newcastle, where do you stand on that?
I thought we did it very well, and I saw Dan Burn interviewed after the game, and he was like, "Look, we did it when we went there. We've done it quite a few times this season, and it's a compliment when a team comes to your ground and does it. It shows where they're going." And he was very much of the opinion that they can't complain when they've done it themselves. And it was actually a mature interview from a footballer, and one that you listen to and you think, I've got a bit more respect for you. But I thought Xhaka was very clever in doing it. Jesus, Jorginho, as you mentioned earlier. But all in all, I felt that it was just a very mature performance from us. And that kind of played into the gamesmanship as well, because they were really physical and really aggressive. And there were a lot of very sort of over-aggressive challenges on our players where I felt they had every right to stay down after them. So I think we did milk that a bit and make sure that we let the ref know we slowed the game down when we needed to. But all in all, I didn't see it being too much of a problem in the way we were doing it. I think we were clever in how we did it. We did it after fouls. Aside from Ramsdale with his goal kicks, there weren't many points where we really slowed the game down and there was obvious stoppages in play other than a player on the floor. And the whole Ramsdale thing, there was one at the end where one of their players goes, picks the ball up, puts it back for him to hit the goal kick, and he slowly walks over, and you know exactly what he's going to do. He's going to kick it to the other side of his six and then start taking it again. And he did exactly that. And I think we've now got the characters. So obviously, Xhaka is one of the more experienced members of the team, and he just loves to squabble with anyone. It's like any excuse, he's straight in there. And it's now that he's kind of learned how to manage that aggression, I love watching him. But we've also got Jorginho is the same. He's a small player, but he loves being in the centre of things. Gabriel can't wait. You just see the minute the whistle goes, Gabriel's like, he can't wait to take off, and he's like sprinting 60 yards to get himself in the middle of it. And again, I think Tierney's one of those players. Zinchenko's very similar. They just love being in the middle of it, and Ramsdale plays into that from the back, Jesus at the front. So I think even Martinelli's getting more like into that kind of side of the game as well. And then when he scored his goal, it was straight up against the Newcastle fans, just staring them out. And because the fans down there, they're in your ear the whole game. They're just shouting abuse at you. And it was one of those celebrations where it was just like, come on then. And I think it really summed up how we had played, kind of the spirit of the game more than anything. It was, they had wound us up all day, and it was one of those grown-up performances where like, all right, you're going to come at us, but we're going to show you that we can handle it now. We're not the sides that you've played against in years gone by where we'll shrink and hide whenever teams come out and play aggressively against us. And that could be a marker for future games that you're not going to kick Arsenal off the pitch anymore. There's players there that can handle that. And they're doing that when you look at how young a lot of those players are. Imagine what this team's going to be like in 2 years when they're just that bit more grown up. No one's going to come out and try and kick us off the pitch because we're going to just completely blitz them away.
Yeah, that's why I find it very interesting when people say, this is our chance, etc. I don't think they're evaluating the squad very well. They're not seeing it. Certainly not like Arteta is. In terms of, a lot of these players are in theory below their peak years, which is very, very interesting. The Xhaka block, Neil, or the Xhaka, if you're talking about the same incident, unless I'm forgetting, the Xhaka was against Willock, is this what we're talking about? So where we came back, brilliant to chase back that far and see the danger, wasn't it? It was a difficult challenge too, because he's dived in there, because he times that wrong, that's a penalty, especially the way this ref's going, but it was fantastic. And it really summed up, his overall performance. I thought he obviously when he came back from illness, he maybe came back back into the wrong game with the City away game, but I think he's been really good in the last couple of games, and it's been a big week for us, really. Because, Neil, talk on Xhaka as well, but talk a little bit on the title. I mean, there was an argument, there's still ways to go, but it's nice to know, even if you don't win it, and obviously we'll look back at the games of West Ham and Southampton, but you don't want to hand it to them on a plate. And I think a lot of people probably, when they saw us against City, probably felt, with the games that we've got coming, that very well could be the case. But we've shown some steel and some metal over this last week, which has been really, it's been really good to see, isn't it, Neil? And hopefully we continue that for the rest of the season and push them all the way at the very least. But they look unstoppable at the moment, City. There's not much you could do anyway, but it's nice to see that we're taking care of our business again.
100%. That's all you can ask for. I mean, everyone was very, very low and down and gutted with those 4 games. But then you have to pick yourselves up and think, all right, we don't want to capitulate completely. We don't want to just hand the title over to them and say, here you go, there's the trophy, have it. We just got to keep out your way now. We don't want to do that. What we want to do is, firstly, win our own games for our own good, because at the end of the day, there's still another season in a few months. We want to start the momentum again, get the run going again, so that builds a foundation for us to go into the summer, whatever transfers need to be made, and then the friendlies, and then kick off all start again for the 23-24 season. So we don't want to start just capitulate and fall away. No way we want to do that. At the end of the day, both of you will agree, we always want to win a game, no matter what the circumstances. If you are watching your team play, you want the team to win. Doesn't matter what the circumstances. So in that respect, it's good that we're making them work. And I firmly believe it will go to the last game now. I really do believe that. I think it's going to be decided on the last. Even if we're behind and we know that City are going to do what they're going to do, it's nice to make them work. I don't want them just to think that, after the Real Madrid game, we've already won the title. No. You're going to work for it. So I'm really glad to see that. And Xhaka, I think that tackle epitomised him, actually epitomised the whole team's performance. Just that movement, him tracking back. And I thought, oh my God, I saw it. I thought, God, he's not going to give a penalty, is he? He really, because he just bundled into him. It looked really kind of awkward and messy. But actually, when you see it again, what a well-timed, absolutely phenomenal. It was world class for me. Because, Will Billick was there. I think he would have finished it. And thankfully, Xhaka just, fantastic. And you're right. I think after his slight come down, I think he's the Xhaka that we're used to at the beginning of the season, and well into it and midway through into it. I think our players again I think Kiwior is instrumental in that. I think we can't underestimate his presence. I think when we lost Saliba, that's where things started going a little bit pear-shaped. I also believe, and I don't know if you agree with me, I also think, although Jesus has come in and scored goals, I think that unbalanced the front as well. Because I think with Trossard, Martinelli and Saka, we were doing good things. And I think when Jesus came in and Trossard got pushed back, I think that took something away as well. So I think it's a combination of that, but more so the Saliba omission was key for me. And I think having Kiwior now back, as Adam was quite rightly saying, I think everyone trusts each other a lot more now and they're happier again. And I think Kiwior is outstanding. So mentioned to him, I think we cannot underestimate what he's going to be for our club. And I want him to play for I don't think Saliba ain't coming back. I can't see it. He's got to start the remaining 3 games. He's got to, 100%.
Yeah. I don't know why we don't really just announce on that. I mean, I'm sure there's reasons for it, but I don't know really why we don't just announce. I understood it pre-City game, but I don't really know at this point why we don't just say, yeah, we're going to hold him for City. And give a little bit more, don't give a huge insight, but just give a little bit more into insight of time frame a little bit, because we don't really know the extent of the injury. Well, we've basically been told the body part and it's the back, and everyone's sort of jumping to conclusions based off that. But Adam, a brilliant win. Xhaka was fantastic. Do you have a little look at the Premier League table and the fixtures coming up? Do you look at it? What do you think? Do you think that's changed our chances? Obviously, we still need them for it to go to the last game. Like Neil said, they would have to drop points and we would have to continue winning every game. Can you see a scenario like that with the way they're playing?
The optimist in me has to believe. Why wouldn't we? But it's probably the first time that I've really looked ahead to the games that both teams have coming up. And City have the hardest games at this point. I think,
from this point, yeah, good point.
From this point. So before kind of this City game, for example, you looked at our fixtures versus theirs and you were thinking, we've got the much tougher running. Because that St James's Park was one of the toughest games one of the toughest games anyone has in a season. And only Liverpool had won there this season. So it shows how difficult that game was. Whereas now, going in, Brighton have just been beaten 5-1 by Everton. They've played a lot of football for a squad that aren't that big, and they rely on a lot of the same players. McAllister obviously went to the World Cup final, won it. So he's played a lot of football this year in comparison to the amount of football that they would have played in previous years. And I think that's one of the keys when you look at it. It's like Liverpool, City playing 60 games a season. They're used to that. Whereas teams like Brighton and even Arsenal as well aren't used to playing that many games. So they don't have the squads to play kind of, Brighton must have played what now, 48 games, something like that, because they went a few rounds in the Carabao, semi-final of the FA Cup, and then yesterday they just capitulated, and that game's going to give Everton a huge amount of confidence, and Sean Dyche is going to set them up in the most horrible way for City to play against, and he's going to go out and hopefully kick them off the park and it's play exactly how he played against us. So City drew with them earlier in the season. So again, don't rule that out completely that something could happen there. They have to go away to Brighton and they have to go away to Brentford. So top four is probably going to be out of contention for Brighton now. However, they still are fighting to play in the Europa League. That's not guaranteed either. So, and imagine Brighton beat City, kept Spurs out of the Europa, and had them playing in either the conference or just not in Europe at all. But yeah, I look at our three games and I think Brighton at home, I'd like to think we would win that game. And our confidence is now sky high. They're going to take a massive dip in confidence, having just had such a big battering against a side as well that they would have been expected to comfortably beat. So I don't know if it will happen, but it's not a foregone conclusion at this point at all. I think City are going to have to earn this title. And for me, I think Neil summed it up there. Let's make them win it. It's, for me, my thought whenever when City beat us was, let's get as close to 90 points as we can. Let's match the Invincibles record. Let's win more games than the Invincibles did. We've already scored more goals.
Yeah.
And let's go out and show this team really means business. Because I know some people say that there's a reset at the start of the season. I think last year they took the kind of heartache to go into this season. We don't want to do that again. We want to take belief going into next year and think, actually, we finished with 90 points. We've just added 3 superstars to the team. We can finish with 96 points this year and we can take City all the way. And so for me, we want to win every game. And I think we can win our last 3 games. So it's just, City aren't going to be handed those games. All 4 teams that they play now have got something to fight for. And it's a case of we just have to believe at this point, and hopefully something magical happens at Wolves in the last day of the season.
Yeah, it'd be terrific to get it to go down that much. For that, they do have to drop some points, and they look pretty unstoppable. But they could have done against Leeds a little bit towards the end. Something could have happened. So you don't know. Like Neil said, hopefully something takes it out of them. Neil, obviously you're an optimist, but before I get your predictions, do you think there's a chance? They've definitely got a harder running. I think they've got Everton, Brighton, Brentford, and there's one other in there that I'm forgetting. I want to say 3 of the next 4 games are away from home.
3 of the 4 are away.
Right, and 2 of our 3 are at home.
Correct.
I mean, you don't know. Like Brighton lost 5-1 at home. I think the interesting thing with Brighton is a lot of their players are in the are possibly leaving. Right, probably 2 or 3 of their big players are probably going to leave. So that's got to be in the mindset. But also, I presume they'll be quite up for shop window games, like against Big Six sides, which ours would be one of. I think De Zerbi's already hinted at them being back to their best come Sunday. So I'd expect to be playing the Brighton that we've seen throughout the season, but I do feel much more comfortable in the fact that I've seen these last 2 performances from Arsenal. What's your sort of percent chance? Has it changed since Newcastle? I think City would have been banking us dropping points for sure against Newcastle and giving them a bit more breathing space.
Percent charge for the title, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, before, put it this way, betting odds before this game, okay. I don't know where they're at now. They gave us about an 8% chance. So, I mean, it's probably a little bit higher.
I think it's higher. As great as City are, they're breaking every blooming record in the book, especially with their cyborg up front. But football can deliver some strange moments. It really can. You can't. They've still got to do it. It doesn't even matter if they were playing 11 knees. They've still got to beat me, haven't they? And I'm the worst footballer that's ever been on the planet. So,
they might beat you, yeah, Neil. They might.
But do you know what I mean? They've still got to go there and do it. Chelsea's the other game you're thinking of. They've got to play Chelsea.
Yeah, Chelsea at home, who are now survived, by the way.
Yeah, they've got to win. They've got to win. This could be their little mini revival at the end of the season. And actually, I would applaud it now. I'm going to be well behind Fatty Frank, 100%.
Yeah. He needs a few wins to get his job next season at the local dog at Duck, doesn't he?
I think the teams that they've got to play, they're all playing for something. They're all playing for something a little bit. I mean, even Brentford would probably want to get one over on them. I think they're going to drop points. It's the optimist in me. Yes, I know. I think we're going to get 90. I really do believe we will finish on 90 points this season. And you know what will happen? It's very much like when Liverpool just missed out against them, and then they did go the one better the following season. That's what I'm holding on to. That even if we don't win the title this season, we're going to learn from it. We're going to get those 90 points. We're going to equal the invincible record, score more goals, as you guys just mentioned, and it'll be such a buoyant platform to bounce off going into the next season. I think it's imperative these next 3 games for us. Let's not talk about City anymore. They'll do what they're going to do, but I think for us, we've got to win those 3 games. We've got to just have that platform to bounce off on for the next season. I think we'll get the 90. And I think the percentage is higher, 100%. If we win our 3, the pressure's on them. You see, the thing is, one thing I have to say, all these years that I've been watching Arsenal, we've always done better as underdogs. When we've been labelled favourites or up there, I think we've always struggled. I think now the pressure is slightly off us because no one expects us to do it now. Very much when we went to Anfield in '89, no one gave us hope in hell, and I just feel that might favour us slightly, and it might be a slight disadvantage to City because everyone's expecting them to do it now. Everyone's expecting them to complete the job. I think if they won the Champions League, they didn't have Real Madrid. I would agree with that, but I think that Real Madrid game might be slightly. It's like Achilles heel to them. Go on.
Sorry to interrupt you. Is it Tuesday or Wednesday their game against? Is it today?
Let me see.
I haven't even looked up the Champions League. I know it's this week. Right?
It's today.
Is it? Wow, interesting. And it's at Madrid, is it?
See, yeah. So they've got Madrid away. Then they've got Everton at home. Sorry, Everton away. So they've got 2 away games. Everton away. Then it's Real Madrid again at home. Then Chelsea at home. And then they've got Brighton and Brentford away. And I don't know, I think that's... I mean,
those last
easy.
2 are interesting, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I think Brentford will give them a game, even if it had to come down to the last game of the season. I think it's still... I think by the skin of our teeth, it's still alive. Yeah. I really do believe it's not over.
Do you know what? By the way, I mean, you were sitting here, or I was sitting here, and I was looking at the table after our loss to City, and Newcastle could have been 4 points behind us if it had gone against us this week. I know it's way off that now. I don't know where we are, 12, 15 points ahead of them or something like that, and we second is for sure wrapped up. But there was a point where you could have worried a little bit about second, and now we're looking at the league table, and what's quite funny about it is to see if United bottle top four, which I'm not sure what I would find funnier: Liverpool winning all these games and then not getting top four and falling into Europa League, or United completely bottling top four after believing they were in a title race up until about a month ago. I'm going back and forth with it. I wake up every morning, I'm like, it's Europa League fodder. Who cares anyway? Do you know what I mean? We're on another level, but I don't know. What would you find funnier, Eddie? Would you find it funnier if United dropped out of it or your Liverpool dropped out of it?
United fans have been hard to listen to all season. My only thing is Liverpool are very self-sufficient. So if they were in the Europa League, that could really hurt them in terms of who they could bring in. Whereas United are a superstar club that can attract anyone. I mean, they spent 70 million on a 31-year-old when they were playing Europa League football and paid him 400 grand a week. So budgets don't really matter to United. However, it's just the fan side of it. I think I would rather see United miss out. But if we're being sensible and thinking ahead, probably Liverpool. But at the same time, I've got a lot of United fan mates that I would just love to see. Because I've listened to all season, we're back. It's like you're fourth and you won the Carabao. Calm down, lads.
Yeah, exactly.
I do have a question for you two, actually, which is, Neil, you said about Liverpool and the year they didn't do it, and then they went on. Why do you think it is that we're being written off for next season? This is our best chance, but when Liverpool were this close, with an older team than what we've got now, they were the next big thing, and everyone was like, Jurgen Klopp's building something magical. What we're doing is incredible. We've got a real strong English corridor team, and yet we're being completely written off. So do either of you have any idea of why that is, why we're being written off so much when Liverpool were put on such a pedestal when they were in this position?
Because they're the darlings, aren't they? Them, Tottenham and Man United are the darlings of the media for me. And we are the villains, always. We've been for a very, very long time. And I just feel that everyone just loves to get under our skin. And I think it's because we've become very reactionary as a fan base. Because I think our fan base is the biggest in the social media world. They know that we're going to react. And it gives them more clickbait, doesn't it? I think I've always felt it, Adam, for many, many years that we're targeted and we're just anything that good happens to us. There's some excuse that they'll come out with. There's never any kind of positives around it. Anything bad happens, if we do make a mistake, if we put in a bad tackle, a player is completely vilified for it. It's whereas if it's another team, the showcase, I feel, isn't highlighted as much as it would be on us. I just feel it's not unexpected. You saying that, it doesn't come as a surprise to me. For me, Liverpool's, the Man U's, the Tottenham's, the darling clubs of the media, and the shift of power thing always made me laugh. You talk about Tottenham and the shift of power. What shift of power? There wasn't any shift of power. And even if those few seasons they finished above us, what did they achieve? What did they win? Nothing.
We won FA Cups.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? We still won more trophies during the time when they supposedly were the better team. It just makes me laugh. And do you know what? I think you touched on something really important there. We've got a great future. If Arteta and Edu can hold on to this team, especially the key players now, we are good for a good 3 to 5 seasons, I think, easily. And I think we'll be challenging for those 3 to 5 seasons because they're a young group. With the exception, as we mentioned earlier, about the slightly aging midfield, we've got a young group of players. And I think that they're going to be so astute in the transfer market. I think we've got a good few years ahead of us now. And I think the media better get prepared that Arsenal are back and we are going to be challenging for the next 3 to 5 years. I can see it.
The thing I'd add to that, I think Neil's spot on, but I think the thing I'd add to that is Klopp to Arteta. I think some of the media will look at it and go, well, Klopp, he won back-to-back titles with Dortmund. Arteta's this new novice, youngest manager in the league, or one of, and they'll go, well, he's not been there and done anything, has he? He's they'll say they'll have this old adage of him, bottling top 4, and now he's bottled the title even when no one thought we were going to be in the race. I think until you've been there and done it, certainly for a club like ours, and having that manager, they'll throw those question marks out. Maybe that's one part of it as well, which is fine. The same sort of things got thrown at Arsene Wenger. No foreign manager had come into the league, and that until he did it, and then it was history. So I'm not concerned about that. But I agree with all the other stuff. Liverpool, massive media darlings, like a few clubs are up north, and we're used to that. I think we're used to that, to be honest. People historically forget we're on paper the third biggest club in the country for a reason, because of the success we've had in the league. So a bit stupid, really. But predictions. Before you go, Adam, what's your prediction? Brighton, Sunday, you confirm. I didn't know if it was Saturday or Sunday, but Brighton, Sunday, they're going to be looking to bounce back. They're still very in with a chance for European football. But you should go predictions and first score, Adam.
3-1 Arsenal. I'm just going to stick to my thing on this pod. Every time I predicted Martinelli to score first, and I'm going to stick with that again. Like it. Okay, Neil, what about you?
I can't do the same as Adam, so I'll go 4-1.
I like it.
I'll go 4-1. And as much as I think he's burnt out, I'm going to say Saka scores first.
Yeah, he needs one. Yeah, he needs to sort of bring back. He's still heavily involved, but yeah, be good to see him get one. I'll go. I think we tight Brighton. I think they've had some big giant killings away from home as well this season. I remember them beating Chelsea recently. I mean, everyone was beating Chelsea, but they were really good. They had like 27 shots or something, but and they looked really, really tasty. So I'll go 2-1 Arsenal. I'll go Gabriel Jesus goal score. Yeah. So, but if we can win, I mean, I didn't check as well, but I presume City play Saturday. Or maybe they play Sunday, because they play
Sunday.
They play before us.
So, yeah, they play just before us. They're on at 2, we're on at 4:30.
Okay, so that'll be a 1-0 Everton Damare Gray special. Looks like they did with the equaliser, and then we'll be all up. We'll be all up and bouncing. Hey, you got to believe, like you boys said. I have less optimism than you two, but you're getting me. You're pushing me there. You're pushing. You're pushing me. Even John texted me, and he went massive. He went massive that, and I went, yeah, probably too little, too late. He went, it's not. They're going to drop points. And I went, I've never seen this positivity from you. And I was like, all right. He went, I don't know why you're so negative. And I went, well, I think I'm just being realistic, but okay. But
I think if City win all the remaining games, they'll have won something like 16 or 17 on the bounce. And at that point, I mean, they absolutely deserve the title.
Absolutely.
It's one of those, when you're on a run of that many games, maybe it's just because I'm an Arsenal fan and we're always expecting us to drop points next. It feels like it's coming to the point where there has to be some sort of slip up, because they've just been so good and so efficient, and everything's just gone their way without. They haven't played that like phenomenal football. They've just been really, really efficient, and I'm just hoping that when Rodrigo scored late on for Leeds, it's like, is this going to be the game where they drop points? And to only beat Leeds 2-1 when they're a bad side. I know Big Sam's just come in, but he's been there 3 days. So yeah, you never know.
You never know. Boys, it's been a pleasure. Keep the faith. Got to believe, haven't we? Yeah, we're still big things to play for with three games left, and you can't ask for much more than that. So let's keep it going, and we'll be back after the Brighton game. Adam, thanks again. You're an Arse Therapy podcast, and I just retweeted you, so people need to see it on my account as well. And we'll get you on again, hopefully when you've got free time. And Neil, I'll be calling you, I'm sure, after the Brighton game. So hopefully with the table just getting closer and closer, fingers crossed. But up the Arsenal, boys. Keep the faith. Thank you so much. We're at Purely Arsenal FP on Twitter and Purely Arsenal. Just type us in on YouTube or subscribe to us. That'd be helpful. Thank you very much. It's free. There's no adverts either. Cheers.